I never thought I'd live to see the night when strangers would come storming through my farm gate like a pack of wolves, armed with crowbars and malice, trying to scare me into submission. But that night it happened. The sound that woke me wasn't Rex's bark. It wasn't a shotgun I kept behind the door. It was the sound of splintering wood, the crash of my front gate shattering against the dirt. A sound so violent it shook me awake, like a lightning strike. At first, I thought maybe it was a storm, a tree branch falling. But then I saw the glow. Headlights, sweeping across my fields like spotlights searching for prey. And then I heard it. The cows. They don't lie, you know. Cows only scream like that when death is near. Rex was already awake. My German shepherd stood at the door, his hackles raised, his chest vibrating with a low, guttural growl. He wasn't asking me what was wrong. He already knew. I shoved my feet into my boots, grabbed my shotgun, and flung open the door. The cold air slapped me awake, and I saw them. 3 men in dark clothes, masks pulled over their faces, crowbars glinting under my floodlights. They thought they were predators. But predators don't expect a farmer to fight back. And me? I wasn't just a farmer tonight. I was a man standing on land soaked with the sweat of my father and the blood of my grandfather. This wasn't property. This was legacy. And I'll be damned if I'd let anyone take it. So here's my question for you. What would you do if 3 armed men came onto your land in the dead of night? Would you cower inside and hope they left? Or would you step outside, shotgun in hand, loyal dog at your side, ready to fight like hell for everything you've ever worked for? That's where my story begins. But trust me, the night was only the beginning. What came after? It makes that first attack look like child's play. To understand why I fought, you need to know what I was fighting for. 60 acres of rolling pasture land, dotted with oaks and wildflowers in the spring. A red barn that leaned a little to the left, but still stood proud after 3 generations. Fences mended more times than I could count. And a herd of dairy cows whose bloodlines stretched back farther than my memory. This farm wasn't just my home. It was my family's lifeblood. My father had bled for it. My grandfather had died on it. Every inch of soil carried the weight of their sacrifice. And then there was Rex. 5 years ago, I trained him myself. Smart, loyal, and fierce when he needed to be. He wasn't just a dog. He was my partner. He chased off coyotes, guarded the herd, and patrolled the fields while I slept. With Rex around, I never felt alone. For years, life was simple. Hard, but honest. Wake at dawn, milk at sunrise, mend fences at noon, check the herd at dusk. My hands were calloused, my back was sore, but my soul was at peace. Until the HOA came knocking. Meadowbrook Heights HOA. They called themselves a Community Improvement Association. But what they really were was a pack of predators dressed in suits and fake smiles. Their queen bee? Veronica Sloan. But you'll know her by another name. HOA Karen. The first time she came, she pulled up in a spotless white BMW, smiling like she was doing me a favor. She handed me a thick stack of papers. Contracts, clauses, fine print, membership benefits, she called them, monthly dues, appearance standards, inspections, fines, even livestock restrictions. And buried deep on page 12, a clause giving the HOA exclusive rights to distribute my milk. She wasn't just trying to neighbor me. She was trying to own me. So I told her no. And that's when things started happening. Tools missing. Fences mysteriously cut. Tire tracks by the pasture. Strange noises in the night. And then came the night the gate shattered. The floodlights burned white against the night. 3 men froze in the glare, crowbars hanging at their sides. One scanned the barn with a flashlight. Another held the crowbar like a bat. The third, the one Rex had locked onto, was already too close. I stepped onto the porch, shotgun leveled. My voice was steady, though my heart hammered in my chest. Get off my land. They laughed. One stepped forward. That's when Rex launched. He hit the man's legs like a battering ram, snarling and snapping, driving him into the dirt. The thug shouted, swinging the crowbar wildly. But Rex was faster, teeth flashing inches from his throat. The other 2 stumbled back. One cursed. fumbling in his pocket. Something dropped to the ground, a wallet. I fired a warning shot into the air. The crack thundered across the fields. Next one goes lower. The men froze. For a second, I saw fear in their eyes. They weren't expecting a farmer who fought back. Then they bolted, dragging their buddy off the ground. They scrambled toward the black SUV idling just beyond the fence. Tires squealed, gravel sprayed, and they vanished into the night. I lowered the shotgun, chest heaving. Rex stood panting at my side, his teeth bared, eyes locked on the road as if daring him to come back. That's when I saw the headlights. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up, red and blue lights cutting through the darkness. Sheriff Robert Hayes stepped out, tall, steady, his hand resting on his holster. "Sam," he said slowly, his voice calm but edged with concern. "Why'd I just pass 3 idiots tearing down the road like their tails were on fire?" I handed him the wallet. Inside, a driver's license, Marcus Webb. But the real smoking gun? A folded receipt tucked behind it. A bank transfer from Meadowbrook Heights HOA. The HOA had sent them. The sheriff's face darkened. "Sam, you better keep your eyes open." And with that, the war was official. The next morning, while I was hammering the busted gate back into place, I heard it, the purr of that white BMW. She stepped out like she owned the place. Blonde hair perfect, navy blazer spotless, heels clicking against gravel. And that smile, the kind that looked friendly until you saw the shark teeth behind it. "Mr. Grady," she called, like we were old friends. "I heard about the terrible incident last night. Just awful. I thought this might be the perfect time to discuss how our HOA could provide security." Her eyes swept over the shattered gate with zero surprise. Rex growled. I didn't hush him. "Funny timing," I said flatly. "Thugs tear up my property, and you show up with a contract, almost like you knew it was going to happen." She opened her briefcase and pulled out that same thick packet, our membership agreement. "Only $300 a month. In return, you'll get patrols, protection, and peace of mind." I flipped through it again. Even worse this time. Control over my barn, my land, my herd, my life. "Why don't you just take the deed while you're at it?" I snapped. Her smile sharpened. "Mr. Grady, refusing membership will only make things difficult. Vendors talk. Reputations matter. It would be a shame if your milk became unsellable." That wasn't a suggestion. That was a threat. And in that moment, standing in the morning sun with Rex growling at my side, I realized something. The attack last night wasn't random. It was a message. And Veronica Sloan, HOA Karen, was the one sending it. From that morning on, my farm stopped being a place of peace. It became a target. At first, the sabotage was subtle. A fence post I'd fixed a dozen times mysteriously broken again. A tractor hose disconnected. Tools left out in the rain when I knew I'd put them away. But then it escalated. One morning, Rex wouldn't stop barking near the pump house. I opened the door and froze. The water regulator had been twisted almost clean off. If it had gone another day, the herd would have been bone dry. That wasn't an accident. That was planned. A week later, I found a strange powder scattered across the feed storage floor. Not flour, not salt, something chemical, something wrong. And then came the note. Folded paper in my mailbox. Shaky handwriting. Just 6 words. "Don't sell your milk tomorrow. Poison." I held that note in my hands, heart pounding. Was this a warning? A setup? A prank? Or was someone inside the HOA guilty enough to tip me off? I sent samples of the milk to the state lab. They came back clean. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and doubt is poison enough. Because the next morning, 5 black SUVs rolled into my driveway, like a convoy. 15 people spilled out, clipboards in hand, cameras flashing. At the front, Veronica, dressed sharp as always, acting like this was her stage. "We're here for a community health inspection," she announced, loud enough for the neighbors watching from across the road. I didn't approve any inspection. I snapped. But they swarmed the barn anyway. They moved with purpose, photographing, scribbling notes, whispering to each other. One woman lingered by the feed bins. When she noticed me watching, She slipped something small into her purse. And then the chaos hit. Bessie, my healthiest, strongest cow, staggered sideways. Foam bubbled at her mouth. She let out a low, awful sound, then collapsed. The so-called inspectors gasped. Veronica raised her phone, snapping photo after photo. "Everyone back!" she cried, putting on her best performance. "This facility is unsafe." I dropped to my knees beside Bessie, panic tightening my throat. But within minutes, the symptoms vanished. She stood, shaky but alive. Poison, but not enough to kill, just enough to scare. By the time the vet arrived, there was no trace. The tests came back clean. But that didn't matter. The photos, the whispers, the gossip, they spread faster than truth. Within a week, 2 of my biggest buyers canceled contracts. Local stores stopped calling. Neighbors muttered behind my back at the diner. And Veronica? She smiled wider than ever. The attack on my reputation worked better than any broken fence. At the diner, I felt eyes on me. Folks whispered, "That's the farmer with bad milk." At church, people avoided my pew. At the feed store, an old friend muttered he couldn't buy from me anymore. Too risky. The town was splitting. Some bent the knee, signing HOA contracts for protection. Others kept quiet, afraid to pick a side. And me? I was becoming the villain in their story. That's how HOA control spreads. Divide, isolate, conquer. But not everyone abandoned me. One evening, Emily Carter, a neighbor 2 farms over, came by. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder before she spoke. "Sam," she said quietly, "I saw something last week. People near your troughs at night. I filmed it." She showed me her phone. Grainy video. Figures pouring powder, whispering about timing. "Proof." "Thank you," I said. "You don't know what this means." She nodded. "Just be careful. People are scared. Some are listening to Veronica." And she was right, because the next day I heard another neighbor say, maybe if Sam just signed, none of this would be happening. It cut deeper than any crowbar ever could. Not long after, another neighbor came forward, a man named Gary, gray hair, overalls, always hanging around the diner. "Sam," he said, "I believe you. HOA is dirty. I can help." He offered to keep watch, to listen in at meetings, to be my eyes and ears. At first, I was grateful. Someone on my side. Someone willing to stand against Veronica. But Rex didn't trust him. Every time Gary came around, Rex growled low, eyes never leaving him. I should have listened. Because a week later, when the sheriff showed me an anonymous complaint letter, claiming I was storing illegal chemicals on my property, I recognized the handwriting. Gary's. The man who pretended to help was feeding Veronica information. I felt sick. Betrayal cuts deeper when it comes with a handshake. The town meeting was called for a Tuesday night. The hall was packed wall to wall, tension thick as smoke. People stood along the walls, whispering, watching. At the front sat Veronica, papers stacked neatly, her smile sharp. She rapped the gavel. "Order, please. Tonight, we address serious safety concerns about Mr. Grady's farm." A man in a navy blazer stood beside her. "I'm Inspector Thompson," he said smoothly. "We found evidence of contamination and improper handling of livestock." The crowd murmured. Heads turned toward me. Eyes narrowed. I stood. "What evidence?" He hesitated. "We're still awaiting lab confirmation." Gasps. A few chuckles. And that's when Emily stood up. "I have something to show you." She held her phone high. The grainy video played on the big screen. Figures pouring powder into my troughs, whispering about timing. The room erupted. "That footage is out of context." Veronica snapped, but for the first time, her mask cracked. Neighbors shouted over each other. Some accused me. Others turned on her. The hall became a storm of voices. And then Veronica lost it. She slammed her fist on the table, pointing at me, her voice shrill and cracking. "This man is dangerous. He refuses standards. He puts us all at risk." Her perfect smile was gone. The predator underneath showed. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Neighbors arguing, shouting, some storming out. As the hall emptied, Veronica leaned close, her voice venom. You just signed your own death warrant. And in that moment, I knew the next attack wouldn't be sabotage. It would be war. The knock came at midnight. Not a polite knock. Not a neighborly knock. This was fists. Heavy. Violent. Over and over until the door rattled on its hinges. Rex was on his feet in a heartbeat, teeth bared, snarling at the wood. My shotgun was already in my hands when I pulled the curtain aside. Floodlights. SUVs. Shadows moving on my porch. And at the front of it all, Veronica Sloan. HOA Karen herself, draped in her blazer like it was armor, clutching a thick folder of papers. Behind her, from men built like hired muscle, broad shoulders, hard eyes, crowbars glinting in their hands. Mr. Grady. Veronica shouted, her voice honeyed but sharp. We have a court order for immediate inspection of your property. Open the door now, or you'll be in contempt of court. I laughed bitterly. Court orders don't come at midnight, and they sure don't arrive with thugs carrying crowbars. I kept the chain lock on. You're trespassing, Veronica. Take your goons and get off my porch. Her smile wavered, just a fraction. She held up the papers higher. This is legal authority, Sam. You can't fight the system forever. One of the thugs stepped forward, testing the porch railing. Another shifted toward the window, trying to peer inside. And that's when Rex lunged. I cracked the door open just enough and let him through. He exploded onto the porch like a missile, clamping his jaws around the arm of the nearest thug. The man screamed, dropping his crowbar as Rex shook him like a rag doll. The others froze, stunned. I stepped onto the porch, shotgun raised, firing a warning shot into the air. The blast split the night. Next one goes lower. The thugs backed up, eyes wide. Veronica stumbled a step, clutching the papers to her chest like a shield. But before she could recover, headlights cut through the night again. A pickup truck screeched to a halt at the end of my drive. Out jumped Gary, my supposed ally. Sam, he shouted, running toward me. I heard the commotion. I came to help. For a moment, relief washed through me. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. But then, Rex growled at him. Low. Warning. The same growl he'd given the thugs that first night. And my gut sank. Gary jogged up the driveway, panting, hands raised. I got your back, Sam. These HOA scum won't push you around. But his eyes wouldn't meet mine. Stay where you are. I warned, shotgun still trained on the thugs. Sam, it's me, Gary insisted, edging closer. We can take M together. And then I saw it, the glint of paper sticking out of his back pocket. The same blue-bound HOA contract Veronica had tried to push on me. My blood ran cold. You're with her, I said. My voice was low, dangerous. Gary froze. His face twitched, just for a second. Then he sneered. You should have just signed, Sam. Would have saved us all this trouble. He stepped back, moving to stand beside Veronica, like he'd always belonged there. The betrayal stung worse than the thug's crowbars ever could. Veronica smirked, regaining her composure. Did you really think you had allies, Sam? Everyone bends eventually. Everyone. She held out the papers again, shaking them for emphasis. Last chance. Sign and this all goes away. I spat at the ground, over my dead body. Her smile widened. That can be arranged. The thug stepped forward again, emboldened, crowbars raised. And then something happened that none of us expected. One of the thugs shifted his stance. He was taller than the rest, wearing a ball cap low over his eyes. He'd been quiet the whole time, hanging back, letting the others take the lead. But suddenly he moved. Quick, precise. In a blur, he drew a pistol from under his jacket and leveled it. Not at me, but at Veronica. Her eyes went wide. What are you doing? His voice was calm, steady. Veronica Sloan, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. The porch went dead silent. The other thugs froze, confused. Gary stumbled back, his jaw slack. And me? For the first time all night, I lowered my shotgun an inch, stunned. The man flipped his cap backward, revealing an earpiece. "This is Special Agent Cole, FBI. The operation is live. Move in." Suddenly, the night exploded. Sirens wailed from every direction. Black SUVs, not HOA this time, but government, roared down the road. Headlights blinded the porch. Men in tactical gear swarmed the property, shouting commands, weapons trained. "FBI!" Hands in the air. The thugs dropped their crowbars, stammering. Gary raised his hands, shaking. Veronica stood frozen, her perfect mask shattered, her lips trembling. Rex kept his jaws locked on the thug's arm until I gave the release command. Even then, he sat at my feet, growling low, eyes locked on Veronica. She turned to me, her voice trembling. You set me up." I shook my head. "No, you set yourself up. You just thought no one would ever fight back." Agent Cole Cuffer himself, reading her rights as the FBI swarmed my yard. Neighbors peeked from their windows, jaws dropping at the sight. And just like that, Veronica Sloane's empire crumbled. But the twist wasn't over. Because as Veronica was being led away, screaming about how she had powerful friends, Gary made his move. He bolted toward my barn, shouting, "You don't have anything on me." 2 agents sprinted after him. I ran too, shotgun ready. Because if Gary had planted something on my property, and I had no doubt he had, he'd try to destroy it before they could find it. We burst into the barn. Gary was already at the far stall, yanking up a loose floorboard. He pulled out a canvas bag stuffed with vials, powders, even forged documents with my name on them. Evidence. Fake evidence meant to frame me. But the FBI was faster. They tackled him, wrestled him into cuffs, bagged the stash. Gary spat at me as they dragged him out. "You'll never beat us. There's more where this came from." I leveled my shotgun at the ground. Not anymore. Outside, the yard was lit up like a football field. Veronica screamed in the back of an FBI SUV. Gary was shoved into another. The thugs sat cuffed on the ground, heads hanging, and the whole town, half of them had come running at the sound of sirens, watched it all unfold. For the first time, they saw the truth. 2 weeks later, the headlines told the story. FBI busts multi-state, HOA fraud ring. Veronica Sloane and associates facing federal charges. Local farmers' evidence sparks nationwide investigation. Turns out Veronica's operation spans 6 states. Fake HOAs, forged inspections. Families forced off land their grandparents built. But it ended here, on my porch, with my dog, with my shotgun, with me refusing to sign. My buyers came back. Contracts reinstated. My name restored. Emily stopped by with a pie, tears in her eyes. "You saved us all," she said. Sheriff Hayes shook my hand. "Most folks would have folded. You didn't. And now the whole country owes you." And Rex? He became a legend. Kids lined up at school to pet the dog, who took down a thug and guarded his farm like a soldier. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the pasture, I stood on my porch, watching the herd graze in peace. "They tried to break me," I said softly, "but they forgot one thing." I looked down at Rex, who wagged his tail, still ever watchful. Farmers don't back down. So now I ask you, if strangers came to your door at midnight with lies, thugs, and threats, would you have signed? Or would you have stood your ground the way I did? Because sometimes the only thing standing between corruption and justice is one man, one shotgun, and one loyal dog.